Hi folks, Ron Ray here with MedicareHackers.com. You know, I often get the question, Ron, how much prospecting do I do? How many calls do I have to make? How many appointments do I have to have in a week in order to be successful in this business? Well, the answer to that question is another question. What is your definition of success? For me, it's meeting certain goals, and those goals would be, income. How much income do you want to make in 1 year? And once we know that number, then we can just work those numbers backwards and find out how much activity you have to have. Now, activity breeds results, and without activity, you're not going to have results. Now, what is that activity going to be? You need to figure out what you're going to do for marketing. Now, when I started in this business, we used this little thing called Project 15 Planner. Now, this was from a company that's a captive company. You just work for them, what Project 15 means is you need to have 15 appointments a week, and that'll get you 2 sales, and that'll be your income for the week. Now, that's not enough for me. We need to have more than 15 appointments and more than 2 sales. But let's just say that you're doing the old standby and you're cold calling. I think that in this day and age, if you're just calling your local area and within an area where you can drive, within driving distance, say, an hour to 2 hours away, you're going to need to you're going to set about 1 appointment per hour if you're good. And the reason that that's a little bit lower is because the number of numbers that you're going to be able to call is smaller. Now, if you're calling nationwide, I think your numbers are going to be a little bit better. I think you should be able to schedule about 3 appointments per hour of dialing. And I would think that if you're using an automatic dialer, you're going to be able to talk to about 1 person for every 10 numbers that you dial, and schedule 1 appointment for about every 10 people that you talk to. Now, some of you may have different numbers than that, good, better, or worse, and that's okay. I'm just giving you kind of an average, kind of what my experience was when I was cold calling. When I was cold calling, I was just calling in my local area. So I had a very limited number of people to call, and those were about my numbers. Now, to get back to the issue at hand, how much activity do you have to have? How many numbers do you have to call? Well, we need to figure out what your goals are for your income. And if we're going to say that the average income on a Medicare supplement is somewhere around $250. Now, that's in my area. It's going to vary based on the area that you're in, because the premiums are higher or lower based on the area that you're in and what your compensation level is. But just for easy math's sake, let's say that your average first year commission rate on a Medicare supplement is about $250. We need to put that number in right here. And now this is an Excel spreadsheet, and what I am not teaching you to do today is use an Excel spreadsheet. That's not what this is about. It's simply just an easy way for me to put the numbers on the screen for you. So you need to have your income is going to be your first year commission, $250 per policy. And let's see that what you need to get to over here. Let's say you want to make $75,000 in first year commission in your first year. Well, let's make that probably a little bit more realistic, and let's say you're going to make $50,000 in your first year commission. Okay, but we need to get to that number, $50,000 first year commission. We need to get to that number making $250 a pop. So how do we do that? We simply just divide. So how many policies do we have to write? We're going to divide that number by what? 250. That means we have to write 200 policies in that year. How many months out of the year are you going to work? You're going to work 12 months. That didn't work. Bring that down 1. And then divide just that 200 by 12, which is, you need to write 16 3/4 apps, 16 2/3 apps per month. How many is that per week? 4. weeks in a month. It's not working perfect, but you're going to get the idea. You need to write 4 policies per week. Now, if we go by the old rule, Project 15, that means you need to have 30 appointments a week. I think that's a little bit on the high side. If your closing ratio is pretty good, then you're probably not going to need that many, but 20 wouldn't be unreasonable. So this, we're just going to, let me just label these real quick. This is your first year commission. This is apps per year. This is apps per month. This is apps per week. Okay, so now we're at 4.16 apps per week. Let's call it 4, and that'll get you there because you're going to cross-sell some stuff, and some people are going to cost more than others. Now, how much activity do you need to get to write those apps? Let's pick a closing ratio. Let's say your closing ratio is 50%. Well, let's say you're just starting out and you're really not going to write that many out of the people that you talk to. Let's say you're going to write 30%. You're going to write a third of the people that you talk to. That's 33%. Now, in order to figure out how many appointments you need to have to get 4 apps per week, we just simply work those numbers backwards. And we're going to divide this number divided by this number, and that's how many appointments you need to have per week. Let's call it 13. Okay, you need to have 13 appointments per week with a 1/3 closing ratio to write 4 apps per month. Now you can work all this math out in your head, but I'm putting it up here on the screen so you can see. Now, how many calls do you need to get that? How many contacts do you need to get those appointments? Now, what did we say? For every 10 people that you talk to, you're going to schedule 1 appointment. So what does that mean? You need to talk to, and your numbers may be a little bit different, but we're just going to use these because they're nice round numbers. So call this contacts. And we're going to take this one and multiply it by 10, because for every 10 people that you talk to, you're going to schedule 1 appointment. So you need to have about 126 contacts. And I think that depending on your calling area and who you're actually calling, you're probably going to need to talk to somewhere in the neighborhood of about 8 people to make 1 contact. So if we take this number and we're going to multiply that by 8, that's going to give us about 1,000 dials a week to get to this number annually. So you're going to start out dialing 1,010 numbers per week. It's hard to do that if you're doing it manually. You cannot stop dialing, because guess what? You still have to have time to have these 12 appointments. So that means that you're only dialing 2, maybe 2.5 days a week. You cannot put the phone down. You're going to have to get yourself a headset and dial manually. If you get yourself an auto dialer like CallFire or one of the other automated dialer systems out there, you can get to that pretty easily, because you don't have to manually work the phone. You upload your list of numbers and it dials it for you. Also, you're going to have a hard time dialing that many numbers if you're just dialing in your general vicinity, or if you're driving to locations. Remember, if you're doing it yourself here in the United States, you have to abide by the do not call rules. That's not optional. You have to follow the law, because if you don't, you're breaking the law, and if you don't, it costs you big time. So in order to get to those numbers, you're going to have to work hard. But that's it. That's how you figure it out. You just take whatever your goal is. If that is 50,000 a year, you just work those numbers backwards to get to what your activity is. So we're just going to copy this over. And let's say if you wanted to get to 75,000 a year, now you have to dial 1,500 numbers a week. And that's tough going, but that's where maybe you hire somebody else to do it and you go nationwide. You're not selling face-to-face anymore. You are hiring somebody to do those calls for you. So now maybe you've got 2 or 3 telemarketers out there that are actually making those cold calls, and now you're getting those 18 appointments, 19 appointments a week, and you're selling your 300 apps a year to get to 75,000 a year. Now remember, folks, all these numbers are going to be slightly different depending on your location and your skill level. If we bump that closing ratio up to something a little more respectable once you get a couple of years under your belt, now those numbers go way down. As you can see, if you're closing 75% of your cases, you don't need that many appointments per week to get to 75,000 a year. So that's how you figure out your goals, figure out your activity required. You don't have to work it out in an old-fashioned planner like this. I did this for a number of years. I bought these on my own. You can get them from Sales Activity Management, and it's got pages in here where you can work these things out. But I just showed you how to do it on an Excel spreadsheet. If you want to know more about this, give me a call here at the office. The number is 800-515-4031. Also, comment in the comment section down below if your numbers are different, or if you have some different ideas, or if you like what I had to say and you just want to say hi, comment down below. Also, subscribe to the channel and click the little bell right beside that so that you get alerts when we post a new video. It's Monday, January the 22nd. We're looking forward to a great week this week. The weather's nice here again, and we'll see you on the other side, folks.